Right, let's go to those live pictures of the funeral that is being held in Abdul Wahid Mosque that's here in Qatar, in the capital, Doha, for all of those that were killed in the attack that was carried out, the shocking attack that was carried out by Israel on Qatar, specifically on Hamas. As they were meeting, they said, to discuss the negotiations to do with ending the war in Gaza and, of course, returning those held captive back to Israel. Those are the funerals, live pictures that you are seeing there. Let's just take a listen. OK, so just a reminder to our viewers, what you're seeing here is the live pictures that are being held in the state mosque. This is the state mosque here in Qatar, specifically in the capital, very much an important part of the country when there are deaths and dignitaries. This is where they will always go to. You're seeing them bringing in the bodies, the flags there, the Palestinian flags, for those that were killed that were Palestinian, and one of them, a Qatari, was also killed in that attack that happened just 2 days ago. Of course, since then, Qatar has condemned that attack on Israel, by Israel, on its country, a sovereign state. Yesterday, we heard overnight the Qatari Prime Minister speaking about the fact that Israel had crossed all red lines by attacking Qatar, not only just because it's a sovereign state, but also because it is one of the main mediators in these negotiations, these ongoing negotiations that have been happening for a very long time between Israel, with mediators, the US, Egypt, and Qatar being one of them. As a result, we have been seeing regional leaders turn up in Qatar to show their solidarity with the Gulf states. We have the Saudis have been here, the president of the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and many other regional leaders that have been calling and speaking to the Qataris to show their solidarity, of course, to make it very clear that Israel has not only broken international laws, but crossed every line, with Qatar saying that Israel is trying to reshape the region according to its goals. One of those that the one Qatari national that was killed was Qatari Lance Corporal Bader Saad Mohammed al-Humaidi, al-Dosari, from a very well-known family here in Qatar. He was on duty when Israel did target those Hamas negotiators. Hamas has said that none of their main leadership was killed. Israel hasn't confirmed whether they think that they were or not, but Israeli sources have been confirming the fact that their mission, as the Qataris put it, failed. So that's the funerals there that you're seeing for those that were killed in the attack there that happened on Qatari soil. Just if you are joining us at the moment, what you are seeing once again there are the live pictures from the state mosque here in Qatar, in the capital, Doha, for those that were killed in that attack that Israel carried out, a brazen attack. The US is reportedly supposed to have had a tense phone call with the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. The US says that it had knowledge, but very last minute, and that it had told the Qatari authorities. Qatar, of course, said that this was too late when they were told that this was happening and this was unfolding. Of course, it's come as a shock to the region, with many countries wondering how far Israel is willing to go, with the Qatari Prime Minister himself saying that the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is very much wanting to continue this war, to continue the war for his own political gain. Israel's longest-serving prime minister is facing corruption charges back in Israel, which often a lot of those court appearances seem to be postponed in the name of the war. This, of course, as Israel is carrying out its attack on Gaza City and pushing many Palestinians to al-Mawasi camp. It says it's a safe zone, a so-called safe zone, contrary to what Palestinians say that have been arriving, saying that the situation there is dire, very difficult. And of course, we do know a famine is existing in Gaza, specifically in across the Strip, where people are very much struggling. Those are the bodies that you are seeing that are arriving. Those are the latest pictures that you can see in the corner of your screen, the pictures of those that were killed in that attack here in Qatar. Now, despite the US president saying that no further attacks would happen on Qatari soil, Israel's prime minister issued a very direct threat overnight. Speaking in English, he said, and I'll quote, he said, "I say to Qatar and all nations who harbor terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice, because if you don't, we will." Okay, so we're seeing those funeral pictures here in Qatar, and let's speak to our correspondent Nida Ibrahim, who's joining us live right now on set. Nida, initially we thought it was a funeral for one person that was killed, the Qatari, but it seems that it's for all of them. How did we get here?
We got here when Israel decided to attack the seventh country since the beginning of October the 7th, after it felt that it has been emboldened to attack not only Gaza, not only the occupied West Bank, but also the whole region. Now it struck a building in Doha, in Qatar, the very country that has been leading the mediation efforts to bring about a ceasefire in Gaza, to bring about an end of hostilities, or to try and get us to the end of the war. And now we are looking at yet another country, this time a US ally, a country that has been involved for years, not just in mediating issues related to Palestine and Israel, but also with other regional and international issues. And now we see the funeral of all those 6 who have been killed, 5 staffers from the movement of Hamas, as well as the one Qatari security official. And listening to the interview of the Qatari Prime Minister, we heard that there's another Qatari security official who has also been critically injured. So we are yet to see the results of
Nida,
this.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to just stop you there for a few moments. Let's just take a listen to those live pictures here in Qatar.
الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Right, what you were just seeing there is the special Muslim funeral that is often held when someone has died. It's a different type of prayer. We've seen His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani at the front there. Of course, this is the state mosque. We have seen the funeral there for 6 people that were killed by Israel from that attack just 2 days ago that very much shocked the small Gulf nation and also shocked not just the locals, but also the expats, the foreign nationals living here, as it happened, the attack in a diplomatic area amongst embassies, near schools, near nurseries, where civilians are living, and right next to a petrol station. And it could have been much worse, of course. This is a civilian area, despite Israel saying that it carries out targeted strikes wherever it strikes people or countries. However, it didn't seem to accomplish what it had tried to accomplish, which was to kill the leadership of Hamas as they were negotiating. Let's go straight to Osama bin Javid, who's live for us in Doha. Osama, you were there at the scene when the attack happened, and here we are with those funerals being held. There's been a lot of activity here since, as regional leaders come and visit to meet with the Qatari authorities.
Absolutely, and the mood has been somber since these death toll was announced as Israel carried out its failed assassination attempt against the leadership of Hamas. Those pictures that you saw there, I think it symbolizes what Qatar stands for, that we initially heard that it will be only held for that 22-year-old young policeman who lost his life, who was guarding that facility. We believe that there is another security person who's critically wounded and in a critical state. We've heard from the Qatari Prime Minister making special prayers for him. And you see that in the front row, the Emir of Qatar, the leader of this country, signaling that Qatar stands by what it has been saying. It stands by its people, and especially those who have given their lives in this unprecedented attack on a GCC country. Qatar, again, as you were just explaining to our viewers, is a country which prides itself in placing itself in the middle of these conflicts, taking enormous risks, facilitating talks, a hotel room diplomacy, and it has been successfully doing it for the last few decades, and especially this issue, the Palestinian issue, something which is very close to a lot of people in the Arab street. You see Qatar taking the steps, unlike many others in its neighborhood, where it is providing aid, it is bringing together not just the Palestinians towards Israel, but the other side too. It is facilitating the secure release of those captives which were taken on October the 7th, and has been doing so on the request of the United States and Israel. So you see the frequency with which Israeli officials have been coming to the Qatari capital holding those talks. And that is why it came as such a shock that in the heart of the Qatari capital, around all of these embassies, around all of these schools and nurseries, this residential compound was hit. And again, hit repeatedly. And this is something which, according to the Qatari government, is unacceptable to them. In the immediate aftermath, you've seen the Qataris come out and say what they want is a regional response. They don't want to come out and say this is an attack only on Qatar. Obviously, it is against their sovereignty and territorial integrity, but they want this whole region to stand united and give a response. And that is something they've been able to achieve successfully in the last 48 hours. You've seen a flurry of diplomatic activity. If you go and look at the number of people who've called the Qatari Emir, the list goes across the globe. So there seem to be people lining up to show solidarity, to show condolences, and the region uniting together. You heard from the Saudi Crown Prince, who we expect will be arriving in Qatar as well, that this is a regional threat. This is an issue which will be taken by the region. You've seen the President of the United Arab Emirates, the Crown Prince of Kuwait, the Crown Prince of Jordan, all arriving here. In the lead-up, in the next few days, you'll see an Arab Islamic summit take place in this country where heads of state are expected, representatives from all over the world, where Qatar wants to tell the world that what it is doing is something at a great cost for its country, but for a wider good for the region and beyond. So those pictures, again, a reminder of the Qataris standing by their people, the Qatari government denouncing it in the most strongest terms. And there's been meetings of the legal committee, which is going to formulate a response, because Qatar says that although what it has faced from Israel is state terrorism, its response is going to be clad in international law.
Osama, can you just remind our viewers, this isn't the first time that there has been attack in the last few months. Of course, Iran also sent missiles aimed at the US base, and included in that the concern that people have, because the US says that it told Qatar, but Qatar contradicted what the US said, that it was too late when it let it know.
I think as the dust settles, that is the big question of who actually knew what and at what point. You see this statement in the immediate aftermath from Donald Trump saying that this was a doing by Israel on its own. The United States did not take part. And immediately as he found out, he told Steve Witkoff, his special envoy, to tell the Qataris. Obviously, the Qataris came out and said, yes, that happened, but it happened too little, too late. It happened 10 minutes after the attack had already begun. So yes, there is a huge gap, and there are wide questions that are being asked about, this role that Qatar has been playing, not just in mediation, but especially the United States, which has been the guarantor for Israel. The United States has a huge presence here. The largest Central Command base is stationed in Qatar, and it has been here for a period where the American presence was actually the source of ire for many in the Middle East. So all of that combined together, and Qatar not receiving a warning, not being foretold by US or Israeli officials, has left this country in shock, grief, and turmoil. And as you said, this is not something that you expect here in Qatar. This is a country in the wider region, a place which is known for its safety, security, and peace. And this, in a matter of few months, a second time where it has faced a foreign attack. But although there might be similarities that end there, because the attack that was carried out by Iran, you saw that attack was orchestrated in a way where there was forewarning. There were embassies that were warning people. There was airspace which was shut down, and the missiles that were used were all shot down by Qatari missile defenses. This time around, when the Qatari Prime Minister was asked, what happened? Why did you not stop this attack? He said that the technology that was used by the Israelis was undetected by the advanced air defenses of Qatar. Again, a bigger question of whoever has been supplying those weapons, who have been partners with Qatar to defend its airspace, will continue to be asked. So it is, yes, in terms of Israel, it's a very simplistic attack that it went after what it finds a legitimate target, but it is against all international norms, all treaties that are abided by states to carry out and conduct business. And that is why Qatar is saying that it wants to respond not just by itself, but as a united region.
Osama, just looking at what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, making a threat to Qatar. I mean, I'll read that quote again. He said, I say to Qatar and all nations who harbour what he says are terrorists, you either expel them or you bring them to justice, because if you don't, we will. How has Qatar responded to that, if at all?
Well, Qatar has been, the response has been bewilderment and anger, because it is not Qatar harboring people. It is essentially opened up an office, like it has done in many other conflicts, at the behest and the request of the United States, where Israel has actively been taking part. You've heard from the Qatari Prime Minister saying that whoever says that they did not know or do not approve are essentially lying, because Qatar has been involving all stakeholders, especially Israel, because it has been doing this not just now in the immediate aftermath of October 7, 2023, but it has been doing so for the last 2 decades. And this is why it came as a shock. And this is why Qatar seems to be so angry that this is something unacceptable. What the basic premise of an interlocutor is that both sides will come together, leave their guns outside the door, and guarantee that the interlocutor, the facilitator, is not going to be shot at. And currently, Israel does not seem to be abiding by those terms. And that's why there's a lot of anger and ire directed at the administration of Benjamin Netanyahu, because he continues to reiterate those threats, especially after, in the immediate aftermath, there was a phone call between the Qatari Emir and the American president, where he assured Qatar, as a guarantor of Israel, that this will not happen again. And just 24 hours later, Benjamin Netanyahu appears and reiterates that threat. So Qatar is in a position where it is asking its allies to come up with a united response. It is asking the interlocutors, which were partners with it, especially the United States, on what this means, and should it be able to trust the United States going forward as well, because this, to many people in Qatar, whether they're in the positions of power or out in the street, is not acceptable at any cost.
OK, thank you very much, Osama bin Javad, live for us here in the capital, Doha.